right, my friends, welcome to Cliff's Corner, another episode of another day of Cliff's Corner. Today we're going to be covering something really amazing. We're going to be covering Liszt's Mazeppa Etude number 4, Franz Liszt Transcendental Etude number 4, the Mazeppa. Let me fix this camera so it won't fall off or anything like that. Right. And so I'm basically gonna walk you through my process of how I break down music, how I study sheet music, how I approach music. You know, these are the things that a lot of pianists, they don't really show the behind the scenes of them working on repertoire. Now, quickly, before I jump into this piece, my goal for next year, June next year, is to play all 12 of these transcendental etudes. In my history as a pianist, in my 23 years, I've played his 4th, which is the Mazeppa. I've played the 6th, which is the Vision Etude, his 7th, which is the Eroica, number 9, which is the Ricordanza, and I also played his Chasnige, number 12, which is like the hardest of the set, besides the Fil Follet, right? Now, the Mazeppa, for those who don't know, it's a tone poem, belongs in the category of program music. Program music was a term that I think was officially made by Franz Liszt. It's basically you're basing your music off of something that was already created. So whether it's a piece of art, whether it's a poem, whether it's, a story that happened, right? You're inspired by art, you're inspired by a lot of great things that has happened or created, and you're creating your own music based off of this. So the Mazeppa, give you a little bit of history, is about a guy named Mazeppa, right? The poem is by a poet named Victor Hugo. And basically, he tells a story of how Mazeppa, he was committed of a crime of, I think, stalking a woman that he really liked or whatever the case may be. I'm so sorry about this terrible lighting. But anyway, he was committed of a crime, and as punishment, he was strapped to 2 horses and was sent off into the jungle. And at the end, he survives and he becomes a nobleman in where he lives, right? Mazeppa. The way I translate this using my COPET method, which is the composer-oriented piano expression and technique method, is by, instead of him being, tried and basically punished, I see this piece right here as King Mazeppa going into battle, right? Everything from the way it starts, where you have these rolling diminished chords. Of course, I have to get the actual notes, right? But I see these notes right here as horns. You know how like before, way back in the early 1600s and stuff like that, there were always battle horns to let people know that we're about to go into battle. So we have that resolves to D minor, octavier, and then you have this 5/7 chord in key of D minor, A7 chord. Now, the next part of this piece right here is cadenza ad libitum. Liszt originally wrote all of these scales going up and down the piano, right? And the way I depict this, if you look at my notes, which I'll put on the video here, it says a low rumble, almost like a car is revving its engine, right? Once you get to the top of the piano, it's the arrival. Right? And then you do a slight slowdown to set up this part. Now, because it's cadenza ad libitum, I'm going to use my own COPET method to make up my own cadenza based off of the story that I'm creating, right? The way I see this whole entire piece, it's King Mazeppa marching into battle. He has his army. There's a push and pull between his army and the army that he's fighting, and eventually he comes out triumphant. That's how I see this piece. But also there's the middle section where you have this beautiful, which is based off of the main melody of, right? That middle section I always depict it as if Mazeppa is in the heat of battle, and he's thinking of the person that he loves. He's trying to get home to her. He's trying not to die on this battlefield. He's trying to survive so he can get home to his woman, right? Now, with all of this being said, the question becomes, well, how does one depict my story based off of this piece? And the first thing I'm doing, like I said earlier, I'm going to change the cadenza to make it more ominous, to make it more grander in my head and in my interpretation of it, so that I can really set up the main melody. So instead of playing them as single notes, I'm going to change it to octaves. About this piece here. I know that this main melody is supposed to be allegro. It's supposed to be right? That's supposed to be the tempo. The way that I see this though, it should be a little bit slower because of the fact that in my way I interpret it using the COPET method, the composer-oriented piano expression and technique method, there needs to be an emphasis on bringing out these chromatic thirds because of what they symbolize. They symbolize the horses galloping into battle. Now, another thing is this. When it comes to these chromatic thirds, for speed, you're supposed to use 2-4-1-3, 2-4, 2-4-1-3, 2-4, 2-4, 1-3. But Liszt's original writing makes you only use 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, right? And if you're using that fingering, then in my head, the way I interpret it, everything has to be a little bit slower. And that works perfectly for me because, I'm not gonna lie, doing these chromatic thirds is a little bit of a challenge, but also it allows me to bring out this melody, these chromatic thirds. So we have right? So let's practice this again. It's so easy to want to rush through the whole entire process, right? I found even here with me practicing this opening section, I found myself wanting to go. Right, but I don't want to play it that fast. So the trick has to become focus on, yes, the main melody, but also my interpretation is really bringing out these chromatic thirds. So do this again. So I'm having trouble when I get to this part. When I go from this A to T, 32nd note octave of A's, going from A to E, G, right? Doing this part, I'm hitting wrong notes. So now, using my COPET method to make this a little bit easier to play, when I get to that part, ta-tee, instead of going ta-tee, I can go ta-tee. Because when you think about it, that note right there, this EGE chord is the top note of the whole entire opening section of this melody, right? We're starting off on D, ta-tee to B flat to A, E. So now that part right there can be considered as a point of arrival, right? And then also using my COPET method to really describe what's happening here. Mazeppa is in a heat of battle. They start fighting, right? And then I finally have broken through, if I'm Mazeppa, their first line of defense. By the time I get to this EGE chord, which allows me to really stretch out that chord so that I can go from, as opposed to trying to go, there's no real contrast. Let me play the overview. Oh, that hurt. Do that again. So now, let's put the thirds in between it. So we have. Now, another thing. Once I go into this next part, which starts on C major, it gives it a different contrast. If you look at my notes here, I wrote the word reinforcements, and I put mezzo piano, so I want to get a little bit softer, as opposed to going from sempre fortissimo e constrettito. I'm mispronouncing those words for sure. It's sempre fortissimo e strepito, meaning loud and boisterous, right? This gives this a really great contrast, because now I'm doing mezzo piano and reinforcements are coming, right? So just imagine Mazeppa's in a really hard battle in his opening section. He finally broke through, right? Broke that first line of defense. His army is tired. He's tired, but he looks over the horizon and he sees reinforcements are coming. Yum! He's happy. Right. So now the reinforcements have come. Let me re-explain all of this right here. So now we went from and then I'll worry about the chromatic thirds in a second. It adds contrast to this whole entire section compared to our first section. Our first section was more direct and to the point. And then when we played the EGE chord, we have arrived, broken through that first line of defense, but then reinforcements are coming, even though I'm tired. Okay, now let's put the thirds in between it. Let's work on that. Another thing, it's always good to look at your music. Your music never lies to you. I thought that this part was, when it's really an inversion of this B major chord, it should have been really up here, F and B to G and C, to B, D, to C, E, to F, B, to G, C. So we have, let's work on that. Same thing again, and it changes. That's what is the problem. And when you're doing these types of chromatic thirds and stuff like this, it's very easy to rush through the whole entire process, because you know you have to do such a huge leap going from the crossing hands, crossing left hand over right hand, and you have this leap all the way up here, or whatever the case may be. But the key is to keep in mind that you're not going to be late when you try to get from these chromatic thirds to an octave 32nd note to a quarter note chord, right? It's keeping in mind that you're not going to be late. This is the tricky part about this whole entire section, right? Because at the end of the day, my interpretation of this Mazeppa, especially this section here, is to not swallow up these whole entire chromatic thirds, the chromaticism that represents and symbolizes Mazeppa on a horse battle going into war, right? So, let's do that again. Again. And when you're memorizing music, when you're working on music, the best thing to do is to practice this. A rule of thumb I like to share with my students is to practice a section 7 times in a row, no mistakes, at a slower tempo, right? Because I feel like once you're able to do it 7 times in a row at a slower tempo, that means that it's stuck in here. It can't leave you, right? As opposed to practicing it, just once or twice or 3 times. No. You got to do the work if you want to learn the music that you want to learn, right? So, because this is new for me, I have to practice this because I originally played different notes, whatever. Again. Again. No. Now we have, and also using no pedal. Without using the pedal, you can't lie to yourself. Always remember that. Again. Let's practice this with paddle. Again, softer. No dirty notes. Like it because I had dirty notes again. Same thing again. Going from E, yum, tum, ta, ti, ta, dum, ti, dum, ta, dum, ta, dum. Again, practicing separately. Yum, ti, da, dum, yum, ti, ta, 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 ti. So soft, everything in here is very lyrical. Yum, ti, da, and then we're getting a little bit louder too. So even though we went from a forte up here, fortissimo, we went to mezzo piano. Yum, ti, everything is very lyrical. Ta, ti, we're getting a little bit louder. Yum. Do this again, both hands. Now let's put the chromaticism in between it. Slow. Don't rush. entire Mazeppa has just gotten to battle, stretching the melody, two armies fighting to the death, right? Let's jump into it. Here we go. Part. Let's do that whole eight measures again. So we have oh, wrong notes. I explained how there's in the third move, the third measure of your opening section. When I jump from this A to E, from A to E G E. Remember how I explained that that's like a point of arrival. We have another point of arrival when we're now going from this A to a diminished chord. That point of arrival gives us time to stretch the melody a little bit more, right? And again, now when we get to that point, using the COPET method, where we're using a storytelling to depict certain parts of our music. If you remember, the first 8 measures of this piece right here, the first 8 measures of this main melody, we talked about Mazeppa, King Mazeppa. He's in the war. He's on horses. He's galloping into war. He's beating everybody up. His army's doing everything that they're supposed to do, right? They break the first line of defense by the time they get to measure number 4. By the time, when they get to measure number 5, they're tired. So that's why I depicted it as a mezzo piano. I gotta use the right notes, of course, on the chromaticism, but reinforcements are coming, right? So now we bring the music softer. And then now we're back to the war by the time we get to this E major chord. Right? We're happy. We're almost breaking the second line of defense. But then, King Mazeppa's enemy got reinforcements and they are fighting back. And then down to A. What is it? I don't know off the top of my head. No. So now we are back. The army got their own reinforcements that King Mazeppa is going against, right? And then they're fighting back. That's what these diminished chords to me depict. There's danger for King Mazeppa's army. The opposing army is fighting back and doing everything they can to fend them off. By the time you get to E major, back to this major chord, has fought back, right? So let's analyze this. Here we go. So let's do this again. One thing you don't want to do is rush that whole entire process, how I just did just now. And normally, when I'm practicing that part, I'm always rushing through that section, which is never good. It's not a good thing. Because I'm so focused on this section here being so much more challenging because you have to do so many different type of jumps going, I just take my time and focus on my chromaticism, the chromatic thirds, I'm not gonna be late. Just like I told you earlier, when you're doing these when you have all these jumps and you have the chromatic thirds in between, which represents King Mazeppa and his army galloping on horses into battle, it's very easy to panic. But if you just keep yourself concentrated, if you concentrate on the fact that, okay, I'm doing these chromatic thirds, and I know where I have to go to get to that 32nd note to the next chord, you're gonna be fine. This is stuff I tell students I have taught this piece to, and this is what I tell myself. Right? So here we go. Yeah. See how I'm rushing? Yeah. I've rushed again. Yeah. Dum dee da dee da dee da dum dee dee da 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 dum da dee da 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 dee da dum dee da 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 yum ta ti yum dee dee yum ta ti da yum ta tam yum ta ti yum. Sometimes you gotta verbalize out loud what you're trying to play or what you're trying to say, right? Make sense? Okay, so we have ya. Hit the right notes again. Again. So, let's practice this again. So, that right there was basically 16 bars of music that was just broken down into sections of 4, measures of 4, using the COPET method. I stress to my students that are in my coaching programs and things like that, the importance of understanding how to use storytelling to break your music down. When you have your own story based off of what you are playing, right? By tapping into your own emotions, your own personal stories, right? Or you come up with your own story tied to who you are, tethered to who you are, because the story comes entirely from you, and you truly believe in this story. It makes understanding your music a lot more efficient, as opposed to just, okay, this is this note, that's that note, this is that note. I'm trying to piece this section with this section when there's no roadmap, right? If you don't have a roadmap through storytelling to depict what's in here and here in your brain and in your heart, what is it all about, right? So even though this music is challenging, there's still no excuse to never have a story associated with what you're playing. And that's what we're basically doing here. We're using the idea of what Liszt has done, right, with his own music and telling our own story based off of what is in here and here. And that's basically what the COPET method is all about. Using storytelling to depict how we feel about the music here and here so that whoever we play it for can understand the story that we're trying to connect with them, with our audience. So let's start from the main part right here where Mazeppa is going into war, right? He gets reinforcements, right? He's back into the war, right? But then the enemy gets their own reinforcements. They're fighting back, but Mazeppa is still fighting. And then there is a point of right. Here we go. first run through of what I just did here is not perfect. It's not 100% good. I'll be honest with you, and being honest with myself. It needs more work, right? But at the same time, I know what I want to get out of this piece, and so it just comes down to my own practice and my own focus. Typical things that us pianists have to work on, right? Now, we have finally arrived here. Can you have? Now, if we're using the COPET method, the composer-oriented piano expression and technique method, to really describe what just happened here, the way I would translate it would be, and then now I'm climbing up these steps. If I'm King Mazeppa, I'm climbing up the castle wall, right? And I'm even though, yes, people are shooting, the opposite team, the opposite army, my enemies is shooting arrows at me. Every time I get to this D major, wait, what chord is it? Yeah. Wait, every time I get to this A major chord, I have defeated one round of defense on this castle. As I'm climbing higher, the castle. Let's further explain that. Let's re-explain that. So I finally arrived at the gates of my enemy, and now we are fighting up the castle walls, or up the landing of the castles, right? The stairways. Every time I get to here, I defeated the first floor. Then it repeats again. I got to the second level, but they're fighting back. But I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. Right? So, in a nutshell, what I'm saying when it comes to the alla breve ma lo stesso tempo section, which switches into 2/2 time signature cut time, and that's not on everybody's score, but on my score it gets a little bit faster. All of these diminished and chromatic runs that you hear, all of that right there is Mazeppa's army fighting off the first floor of defense, right? Because imagine that the king is his opposing army's king is at the top of the castle, right? So you got to go through all of these levels in the castle to defeat everybody to get to that king, right? When I get to this diminished chord on D, that diminished chord means the army is trying to fight back, but my army is too strong. Then it goes higher to the second level. Repeats. I got to the last level. But here's the beautiful thing. If you understand that, the list goes like this. Triple it, da. He's switching between the diminished B chord and going to A major chord in first and second inversion. He alternates. What that and the left hand is going down the piano. So the way I depict this, I almost made it to the top level of the castle of my enemy, right? But they have fought back so much that I keep going back down. I'm scared right here. I'm scared that they're fighting back, but my team is strong. Every time it seems like we're making progress, we get knocked down. I'm losing warriors, but my team is not giving up. I'm losing warriors, but my team is not giving up. I'm at the bottom, but I have hope that I'm gonna be able to climb all the way back up top. So if we depict this, gotta work on it. Let's practice it again. part for me is this left hand. I gotta make sure that I get to this G and E. Again. And the right hand is not as crazy. That feels comfortable in the right hand. But I think what the issue that I have in the left hand is, when I get to this G and E, I'm trying to use my first finger on D to C sharp. It's supposed to be G and E, right? And it goes down from E to D to C sharp. What I'm doing wrong is I'm playing thumb on E and D to get to C sharp when I don't need to do that. Instead, I should do 1, 2, 3. So, using fingers, the first finger, my second finger to third finger. So it should be 1. That's the most important thing. Also, moving your fingers. So, depicting this again, I'm going through this, well, as if I am King Mazeppa, right? My army behind me, we're going up the first level of the army's defense in the castle. They're fighting back, but I have arrived. Now I'm heading to the second level of the castle. They're fighting back, but I have arrived. However, their armies are very strong. I underestimated them. I'm starting to lose people. That's what this diminished chord represents. I'm scared, but even though I got knocked down to the first level, the first floor, I still have confidence that we're going to be able to get back up there. Same thing again. I'm trying to get back through this first level, but that army's too strong. I'm not worried because now this section right here, where you have, I'm not worried because of this section right here. Now, the way I depict this next octave section, which is famous for so many people, they play extremely fast, or sometimes, depending on what you agree with or don't agree with, you play however you want to play it. The way I depict this octave section is, yes, my army is looking defeated. Now it's time for me to give the most wonderful speech that I can give my army. And the speech goes like this. Yes, we're down, but we are not giving up. We're going to find a way to flank this army, our opposing army. They're expecting us to try to break through the front door so that we can get to the first level and to the second level. But instead, we're going to maneuver differently to trick them out of position, to see how we can get past the first level and second level, third, fourth, and fifth levels to get to that king up there so we can take him out. So, when I get to here, I'm not playing it like this. Not extremely fast. I want to communicate to my team, my army, that we're not giving up. Hey, listen. Basically is what I'm saying. Listen to me. We are not giving up. We are not giving up. Now, when I play this section here, I like to go a little bit softer to build the tension. Because now, at this point, I've sent out the scouts in my army. The scouts in the army are the people who, he or she are the ones who get intel by venturing out into enemy territory undetected. And they're coming back to find ways that we can sneak around, to maneuver better so that we won't lose as many people in the army, right? So now, once I get to here, I sent out my scouts. They come back with information. They give me the information. We finally have the plan to break through. down a plan to outmaneuver our enemy, to get into their castle, to infiltrate their enemy lines, to get past the first floor and the second floor. And now we have arrived to the third floor, right? So now if I play that whole entire octave section with everything that I just said using my COPET method, it'll sound like this. Back to the war, like you'll see here on my music, back to the war, right? And now, now, of course, using the COPET method, we can still tell even more stories in this section right here. Yes, we have arrived. We're now on the third floor fighting. My army is, or King Mazeppa's army is doing the damn thing. They're fighting, they're beating everybody up. And then, of course, when we get to here, remember how we went to C major, right? When we went to C major, we were saying that reinforcements have come. The reinforcements are here. Even more reinforcements have come. But then, things change. That little part where he goes from to F minor, that can be depicted as my reinforcements. I've lost half of my reinforcements, so I'm a little bit worried. Right, so we got the think of it like this. We just got the reinforcements, but then we're losing half of them because the opposing army have their own reinforcements and it's taking out mine. But King Mazeppa is not giving up. All right, now that part I have to get into my fingers. So let's look at it. So. Sorry, no, that's not where I'm at. I'm at the C major. Again. Again, work on this again. So we arrived at the C major. We have our reinforcements, but the enemy's army has taken out half of my reinforcements. And me as Mazeppa, I'm worried, but I don't care because I'm King Mazeppa. Are you crazy? Of course I'm not worried. Let's continue to charge through, and they start to have success. They're beating up the opposing army. Now they think that they get to think of it like this. They cleared out the first level of the castle, they cleared out the second level of the castle, and now in this section here, when they went from C major, they're at the beginning of the third floor, they're going across this way, they're fighting enemies. The reinforcements arrived, right? But their reinforcements is taking out half of my King Mazeppa's reinforcements, But King Mazeppa is not worried, and he says, let's continue to push through. Now, by that time, they're like about 3/4 of the way of clearing out the third floor with this E flat major chord. Mazeppa is like, let's continue to push through. And then, of course, they get to almost to the end of defeating that third floor, and they're happy with this A flat major chord. But then the King's army, right on the cusp of them clearing out this third floor, the King's army brings out these new and improved weapons that nobody has ever seen before. They've heard of them. Let's call them super cannons. And they're blasting back. But Mazeppa is like, no, I have my own weapons that I can use. Bring out the triple cannon beam effect, whatever you want to call it. And so forth and so on. What time is it? 10:39. Okay. Right? Guys, the most important thing. This may seem really silly what I'm doing, but as you are going through your music, it's very important to be able to have fun with what you're playing. I'm all smiles and ears because of the fact that, yes, this piece is super challenging. I'm having so much fun explaining to y'all, using my COPET method, how to break this piece down, using my own storytelling based off of the harmonic, melodic lines and the harmonies and the theory that's in this piece, right? And some people will hear this and probably won't agree, but that's okay. I hear it and I see it the way that I see it, and I have a complete smile on my face doing this. Just imagine, like, I want y'all to think about this. Just imagine the times when you're learning new music, right? And it gets to that point where you're like, yo, you don't know what to do. You are stuck, that you're not having fun. It feels like so much work. It feels taxing. But if you just take time out to tell a story based off of what you're hearing, it could be something as silly as the dog went to the store and ate pineapples. Have fun with it, right? There shouldn't be so much emphasis on playing to perfection that, or playing a piece that so, like, you want to play it so well that in your practice you're super frustrated, because what ends up happening is you're going to throw your music across the room. I've done that thousands of times, billions of times. I've had my own students do that to me, and instead of doing that, if you tap into your storytelling and depict what the story is about, it's so much fun. This is a lot of fun for me to do, to break down this music using my own intellect, using my own storytelling. Like, this is so much fun, and this is why I'm glad that I came up with the COPET method, because it helps people really break down complex sheet music. There's nothing worse than learning your favorite, going through the motions of learning your favorite piece, right? And then you hit a wall. You hit a wall. You're constantly hitting a wall. You don't know how to depict this, how to play this certain section. But I promise you, like I've been saying this past God knows how long, I promise you, if you just take time out to really, like, use storytelling, using the COPET method, the composer-oriented piano expression and technique method, you're gonna get through your pieces much more easier. The more technical stuff will not be as challenging because you're having fun with it, as opposed to thinking of it as work. I tell my students all the time, when it comes to fundamentals, because all of this, everything that I've showed you so far, and I only have gotten through the first 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of this music, 5 pages of this music. All of this, and I'm showing you, are the fundamentals of learning music, of breaking down complex music. If you're not able to make it fun, then it becomes work. Then it becomes a situation where you don't want to learn this music. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to go through the quote unquote grind of learning this music. I wish somebody would have told me the importance of, on a grander scale, the way that I'm doing it now, using my COPET method. I wish that method was around when I was taking lessons, because I would have learned my pieces much more faster if I can have fun the way that I'm having fun with my music, right? As opposed to, you know, the strict, rigorous training, which does have a lot of effects for sure. And my teacher, Mr. Lila, amazing, great teacher, you know, and she also was heavy on feeling the music, your musicianship, right? And she always saw in me that I could feel music, right? But I took what she taught me and made it a grander scale, and put it on a grander scale by putting my own thoughts and emotions into this music through storytelling, using the COPET method, composer-oriented piano expression and technique method. And now I'm through like the first 5 pages of this piece. Even though I've played it before, I'm getting it back into my fingers, but this is just so much fun to do, like, oh. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop there. That was the first 5 pages of the Mazeppa. I'm going to do another video where I'm gonna cover some more pages of the Mazeppa and things like that. And I just wanna say all that to say this. If you're a pianist who is struggling breaking down complex pieces, or looking to improve your piano technique, or looking for a different way to improve your piano technique rather than the traditional way, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or lower advanced level pianist, I want you to click the link in the description and join my monthly membership, monthly community called Cliff's Keys to Mastery. And we cover so many different things. I'm opening up. I'm opening up now. Still working on different things, but we're going to be covering so many different things. How to work on technique, rather than just doing your regular scales. Right? You're learning how to create with these scales. You're learning how to create with these arpeggios. When it comes to my Cliff Keys to Mastery, I'm breaking down the same way I'm breaking these pieces down here using the COPET method. There are other pieces that I'm going to be working on that using the same COPET method. Students that are in there, that are going to be in there as well, they send me pieces that they're working on. I give them feedback. Shape it like this. Look at it like this. Every week you get a weekly assignment of some type of composition. I'm not saying you have to write anything down or anything like that, but let's say this week we're working on vibrato or pedal, right? Create a piece tapping into your own emotions through your own storytelling that shows you using the pedal, using dynamics, right? Using arpeggios, chords, whatever the case may be. Every week you get a different prompt, every week you get a different challenge, and of course there's a whole bunch of accountability things that I will have for you and all those great things. But anyway, so that's the Cliff Keys to Mastery. Hit the link in the description to join today, and thank you so much for tuning in. This was another episode of Cliff's Corner. I'm honored, I'm grateful that y'all tuned in, and take care. I love y'all. Oh, my body.